Welcome to episode 186 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I am your host, Matt Harman, joined live from the Vault Studio in the beautiful campus of Grace College and Theological Seminary by my good friend, my colleague, my co-host, and the man who called someone senile in his Sunday school class yesterday, John Scott Sloat.
I stand behind that comment. I wondered if I should feel bad, and then people came up to me and that were there and told me not to feel bad about it.
Yes. So you're saying he had it coming?
I think so. I told you the context.
Yeah, you did.
And I think you said, yeah, that was probably called for.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is a bit of a character, so it's not like this is something where he would have been offended by it.
Yeah, I don't get the impression he was. In fact, later on he goes, "Excuse me, John, I'm senile and forget this from last week, and I will ask the same question next week as well."
Yes.
So,
okay. Yes. Now your lovely wife was less than thrilled with that maneuver in class.
Usually anytime I teach, there's one thing that I say that my wife is just like, "Oh my gosh, John is burning bridges." Or upsetting people or offending others or something like that. And 9 times out of 10, I'm not troubling anyone too much. But that 1 time out of 10.
So perhaps her conscience is a bit more sensitive than yours?
I think that's a fair comment, yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. If you'd like to get in touch with the show and see if John will call you senile, you can reach us on Twitter at VNSPod. Or is it going to be called X now? Have you seen this? That Elon Musk is starting something new, changing the name of Twitter? I'm still very confused.
We'll see what happens. Let's wait it out. But yes, I did see his tweet announcement of it, and I don't know what's going on. I'm told that he wants to turn it into like. Have you heard of WeChat?
No.
So in China, there's an app called WeChat that basically is more of a text messaging service, but you can bank through it. You can do all these different things through WeChat, and we just don't have an equivalent in the United States. And basically, he wants to become the WeChat of the West.
Okay, so, but then, what becomes of Twitter as we know it today?
Oh, I don't know.
In the sense of just, hey, I'm posting funny thoughts, scurrilous accusations.
Church history and Seinfeld memes.
Yes.
I don't know what happens to Twitter. I imagine it will always have that feed, but I don't know what that ultimately looks like.
Yeah.
But I don't know what verb to use, right? Because it was Twitter. It's a bird. You tweet.
Yeah.
It's now an X.
You X'd him?
You ecstasy? Like that doesn't sound good.
No.
I don't like X as a verb.
No.
I think I'm going to keep calling it Twitter for the time being.
Okay.
And we'll see what happens.
Just clarifying.
I think the app is still a bird.
Yeah. So, have you checked out Threads? The Meta Facebook?
No. I deleted Instagram, and it's tied to Instagram, and so I decided I wasn't going to make the jump.
Okay. I haven't either. You can go old school and you can email the show, variousandsundrypodcast@gmail.com.
Elon's not changing my email.
Not that we're aware of.
Yet.
You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. We would love for you to leave a review and a 5-star rating. And I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but we have breaking news on the program, John.
Oh, what is the breaking news?
We've had another book published, you and I together.
Oh, is it on? Is it up?
It's up.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Do you want to fill people in?
Yeah. So some of our listeners may be aware that the Gospel Coalition has a set of freely available online commentaries, and we did 2 Peter. And that was published probably a year ago, right?
Yeah. Let's be clear. The Gospel Coalition wanted Matt Harman to write a couple commentaries, and Matt goes, "I don't have time for this. Let my peon John write these commentaries, and then I'll give it my my approval.
Well, okay, let's clarify that. One, you're not a peon. Two, basically the process was you took what I had written in published commentaries.
That's right, yeah.
And tried to radically condense it and add in some of your own insights and that sort of thing. It wasn't just a sort of condensing exercise. And then, we edited that and crafted it and all that sort of stuff. And finally, Galatians is available. When did we turn that in?
Probably
April?
Yeah, I was about to say 3 months ago. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
And have we been paid? Maybe this isn't the proper context to talk about whether we've been paid for Galatians or not.
I don't know that we have. We should probably check into that.
What do we do?
I can follow up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who do we email?
I can find somebody to email.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
Okay. Sounds great. But anyway, it's published. Where can it be found?
I don't have the. We'll throw a link in the show notes.
That sounds great.
But it's like if you go into gospel, if you search like Gospel Coalition, I think concise commentary.
Yeah.
If you search that in Google,
that was the original name of it.
And then it'll take you to the Google will take you to the main page, and then from there you can scroll through and find our contribution on Galatians and 2 Peter. So
nice. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. So I thought I'd throw that in there. I forgot to mention that to you. They also notified me, by the way.
Yeah, there we are.
Yeah.
It has you down as Matthew P. Harman, though, on Galatians. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Remember, they had me down as John Sloan initially?
Wait, didn't they have you as Paul?
Yes, it was Paul.
Oh,
You're
Paul
right.
Sloat.
Paul Sloat, who doesn't exist as far as I'm aware.
Not that we're aware of.
So Paul has now transferred to your middle name, I suppose.
I guess.
Matthew P. Harman.
Oh, yeah. We gotta get that. Gotta get that.
Do they have that on 2 Peter? No, there's just Matthew Harman on 2 Peter.
Okay, well. Still some work to be done.
They almost got them all up there.
Getting close, yeah.
I'm glad to see we're not the last ones, you know.
No. Anyway, so they also notified me that, you know how I taught my book Asking the Right Questions?
Yes.
At CCC.
And it was recorded.
40 years. This is pre-COVID, I believe.
Yeah, I remember. It was a packed house, but I remember specifically it was recording focused, and so people were not allowed to ask questions until a designated time period.
Right. Well, I sent all the materials off to them years ago. I'm like, whatever happened to that? And then out of the blue, I got an email a month ago, 3 weeks ago. Hey, by the way, your course has been up.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay. Good to know. So anyway, maybe we could throw a link in the show notes to that as well.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all the intro stuff I wanted to get to. John, you ready to talk some sports?
Sure. I'm sorry. I'm looking for your asking the right questions.
You do that. I'll segue us in.
Okay.
Here. All right. So there wasn't. Again, this is the time of the year where there's not a lot going on sports wise. Probably the big thing over the weekend was what we Yankees call the British Open, but the Brits just refer to it as the Open Championship. And it was apparently won. Not that I saw any of this, except for maybe a couple of highlights. It was won by one of my distant relatives.
Yeah,
Brian Harman.
Brian? Yes, Brian. For some reason, I had Bryce in my head.
No, I have no idea if he's actually a relative, and he is part of the inferior AN.
Yeah, I was about to say he spells it differently than you.
Yeah, Harman.
But he's American, right?
Harman. Yeah, he's American. Not sure where he's from here in the States, but he's American.
Well, good. I love it when we can conquer in Britain as well as the United States.
That's right. I mean, I have a Brit living with me in our home.
Yes, we've claimed him.
Yes. Have you seen the hat he likes to wear on occasion?
No. I am getting lunch with him on Wednesday.
Yeah, he mentioned that. He's looking forward to it. He has a hat. It's a red hat. And it says, "Make America Great Britain Again."
Wow. Wow.
Which is funny on multiple levels. But one is like he is very much he loves America. Like he's not in any way sort of like snooty Brit who feels like he's sort of slumming it by living in the States here.
Now, what's his palate like? Is his palate more British or is his palate more American?
It's more American.
Okay.
Yeah.
I find
now he still will eat beans and toast. He hasn't done that yet in our house, but for breakfast he would eat beans and toast or some other British dishes that
I've had beans and toast before.
Yeah, no thanks.
It sticks with you. It's hearty.
Yeah.
Sometimes you eat American breakfast, and you're hungry an hour later. Mm-hmm. But beans and toast sticks with you.
Yes. So anyway,
we are off the rails.
Yep.
Big time.
Yeah, Brian Harman won the British Open
or the Open if you're British.
Let's talk Mets. Are they still terrible?
Oh, it's been a rough go. The talk for a while was, they're going to trade Scherzer. They're going to trade Scherzer. I'm not sure we could find somebody to take Scherzer. He's pitching so poorly.
Wow.
He gave up 4 home runs in his last start.
All right.
Not good.
No.
Not good.
What about the Jets?
They're on Hard Knocks.
Right.
I can't remember if we knew that last time we recorded.
We did. Which you were lamenting, actually.
Yeah.
Because that's generally not something that works out well.
So question for you.
Yeah.
Do we want to cover Hard Knocks on the pod?
I don't. Is it on HBO?
Yeah.
I don't have an HBO subscription.
Neither do I. I might get one. just to watch.
Okay.
Is it something that we want to discuss on pod?
Maybe, as long as I'm not obligated to shell out the $10 a month to. Like, I mean,
I'm sure you could find a recap video online or something.
Maybe, yeah.
But is it content we want to cover?
I mean, I don't know why not.
Okay.
They're your team.
Yeah, it is my team.
I mean, if there was a Hard Knocks equivalent for Ohio State football, we'd be talking about it.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, so I think I'll probably subscribe.
Okay.
I'll try to get a 3-month trial or something like that.
There you go.
Go from there. I'm doing that with Apple TV right now.
Okay. So I have seen, though, and this is in part just because, I mean, Garrett Wilson, former Buckeye.
Sure.
So a lot of the Ohio State football feeds that I follow will retweet stuff from Jets training camp or whatever.
Does it feel like I've infiltrated your Twitter feed a little bit?
Nah, not really.
Okay.
And they've shown a couple of clips of Garrett Wilson making absurd catches. Like he's just.
Did you see his toe tap at the back of the end zone?
Yes.
That was incredible.
Caught the ball almost like the back half of it.
With his fingertips?
Yeah,
that was pretty
fully
cool.
Extended.
Saw him beat Sauce Gardner down the line as well. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Him and Aaron Rodgers seem to be forming a good bond.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that should bode well for your Jets.
I hope so. Oh my goodness. Even if we could win a playoff game, I'd be over the moon. I mean,
the East. I mean, obviously, now the division is about the Bills.
Yes.
It used to. For 2 decades, it was the Patriots.
Yes.
Now it's the Bills.
Since I was in junior high, it was about the Patriots.
Yeah. And then it kind of feels like it's been Patriots and Dolphins at that next notch down, and then the Jets have been kind of bringing up the rear. Now with the addition of Aaron Rodgers, I would think it's Bills, and then those next 3 teams are kind of a toss-up potentially. Dolphins, Jets, and
I think the Jets are probably better than the Patriots. The Patriots have done nothing to surround Mac Jones with any talent.
And I'm not convinced he's that great to begin with.
That's right. And then the Dolphins, I think they have lots of question marks. Now, they got Tyreek Hill. He's very, very good. But Tua, I mean, he feels like he's one tackle away from ending his career.
Yeah.
At any given point.
That seems fair.
So, I actually feel pretty good about being second in that division, or even 1A, depending on how the Bills' season goes. Yeah. And you know, all these things have caveats with injuries and all sorts of things. And so, but the Jets look really, really good. Mekhi Becton is. Are you familiar with Mekhi Becton?
I'm not.
Our left tackle we took in the first round. The only thing I remember about him from draft night is he's like 6'8", 375 pounds. I mean, he's just a big boy. Mm-hmm. And on his draft profile says "loves soul food," and that's all it said.
You could probably just drop the word "soul" out of that and just said "loves food."
But he's come in pounds. He's come into camp 40 pounds lighter.
All right.
And moves very, very well. He played at Louisville. I think they called him the Mountain. So if he can play left tackle for us and be healthy all year, which he hasn't been the last 2 years, we're going to be okay.
All right.
I think we're going to be okay.
Well, at some point before the season, we will do our preseason predictions. You'll make a prediction for the Jets.
Oh my goodness!
I'll make a prediction for the Buckeyes, and then we'll see how that goes.
You know what? This will be the first time that I have hope surrounding the Jets. And
hope's a dangerous thing, John.
Yeah,
have you not seen Shawshank Redemption? Hope's a dangerous thing.
Hope's a dangerous thing. A lot of optimism, and we'll see what that transforms in my psyche over the next few weeks, particularly as I watch Hard Knocks.
Okay. All right, we need to move on. So our topic for today.
Yeah, we've really been undisciplined in this episode.
It's the summer. Our topic for today is an article entitled "The Church." Gotta love that title. "The Church in a Time of Gender War."
Not the church, the
church. Yeah, just speaking generically.
Yeah.
Though I think, as the article makes clear, he's speaking of the evangelical church.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I just say we're in a rut this summer where we're texting on Sunday afternoon about what we're going to talk about the next day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's kind of a summer thing as well. Like once we finish our book and done our interview, it's like we're on podcation a little bit. Through.
Are you suggesting we're just phoning these episodes in until we get to the fall?
No, because we read the article and we think the article has something important to say, and we have serious thoughts about the articles. However, we're not sitting down discussing, okay, what are we covering over the next 12 weeks?
No,
we're not doing that.
No,
which we probably should.
Yeah, we probably should. Anyway, this article is by Samuel James, who he has a website entitled Digital Liturgies. That's not easy to say, by the way. .net, where he writes, analysis, opinion pieces, etc. I've actually met him once. I don't know if he still does. He worked for Crossway for a while.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. But he's sort of carved out a space of being a cultural commentator, church commentator. And so I came across this article and I thought, this looks like some good pod fodder for us.
Okay.
So, again, part of the challenge with doing articles like this is that we know you haven't read them as the listening audience, and so we have to try to give some basic summary of what the article is arguing for, and then discuss it. So, basically, he is contending that there's this ongoing, what he refers to as a gender war, that takes a couple different shapes within the evangelical church, and part of it's a reflection of what's going on in culture. That on the one hand, you've got again, this comes at it from a variety of different angles. One angle he talks about is that members of the opposite sex have no idea how to talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So really he's focusing on people like in their 20s probably would be the range.
20s and early 30s.
20s and early 30s. Yeah. And that beyond just not being able to talk to each other, that's tied to the nationwide decline of marriage and sex. And what's one of the points that he makes is that it's not something that men or women are protesting. They're just adapting to it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen this, that as a general rule, the marriage age has increased.
Yeah.
And there are a variety of factors that go into this.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he's not automatically sort of saying a sort of one-size-fits-all analysis here. But part of what he's getting at is that he shows this chart in the article. And basically the chart is entitled The Share of Single Men in the U.S. Who Are Looking for Dates or a Relationship has declined since 2019. So these stats are from 2022. So in that 3-year span, the number of single U.S. adults, and I don't see a definition here. Is it just generic?
Single adults refers to those who are not married, living with a partner, or in a committed relationship.
Okay. So this is not broken down by age. But anyway. So in 2019, 49% of single adults were looking for a romantic relationship or even casual dates. That number has dropped to 42.
Mm-hmm.
What's striking, though, is that when it comes to men, the number went from 61 to 50.
So it dropped by 11%.
Right. Whereas for women, it dropped from 38 to 35. So 38 to 35, probably not a huge statistical.
I think the more interesting thing with that for single women is that there's just less single women looking for a relationship.
In total, you mean?
Yeah. Like men, it's half.
Yeah.
Half even today are looking for it. For women, it's
Gotcha.
a third.
Yeah.
That feels significant to me.
I agree.
A little more than a third of single women are looking for a relationship. That's
right.
Fascinating.
Well, and he gets into that to some degree in the sense of he talks about where does he put this? He's got this that on the one hand, where is it here? So from the female side of it, he basically identifies how some women are how does he put this? I'm looking for the line here.
Talk about the single woke females?
Yeah, but before that, in the end of the first paragraph here, he says, as he's looking at the church, we also started hearing and seeing evidence that the emerging generation of Christians really had no idea how to talk to the opposite sex. Men were paralyzed, passive, and clueless. Women were easily turned off and aloof. Oh, again, broad sweeping statements.
Sure.
But I do wonder if he's onto something there.
Mm-hmm.
That, and maybe we could see those as like tendencies, not universals by any means, but that maybe the tendency among some women is to either be so picky or so, like demanding that a guy hit 37 boxes to check off. And that on the other end, some men are just so stinking passive and casual and not intentional about pursuing a woman that it falls apart that way too.
Yeah, I'd want to replace the conjunction. So men were they were witnessing that the men were paralyzed, passive, and clueless. I'd want to change that to or.
Okay.
I don't think we see all three of those traits in same people. I think that's three different problems. That
can be. Yeah,
that men
I think that's fair.
Some men are regularly paralyzed.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Some men are regularly passive, and
Yes.
some men are regularly clueless. Like it's one of those three things.
I think that's fair.
Like if I can talk about myself in my own 20s experience, probably paralyzed. And a lot of that had to do with the pressures of a lot of the pressures that I felt from family, the church, or my own school that I was attending.
Ring by spring, John.
Yeah. And so that was a paralyzing fear for me.
Okay.
I did not as much feel the passivity or the cluelessness. And I imagine the same thing is true for women. Like I'd want to change that conjunction from the women were easily turned off or aloof.
Okay.
Like that's a subtle distinction.
No, I think that's valuable though.
But I think I think it helpfully describes my own experience being single into my late 20s and early 30s. There are some women that were far too picky. They were easily turned off, and there are some that, quite frankly, just didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and certainly the comments about men, paralyzed, passive, or clueless, for sure. I think, and then he does do a section here about kind of the extremes of that, of the sort of quote unquote single woke female getting hardened in her political and social views and turning men off. And then on the other side, you've got men who are you familiar with the term incel?
No, that was the first time I'd heard that term.
I feel like I've heard that term, but basically it's referring to someone who is more and more isolated from the real world, and his whole life it revolves around stuff online. And so and he points out each of them have these like hardening dogmatic convictions that make it harder to, in one sense, bridge the gap between the sexes.
Yeah.
What did you make of his point? I thought one of the interesting points that he makes is that marriage is uniquely positioned to teach you to learn how to relate to people of the opposite sex. That it creates a built-in empathy because you are committed to getting to know one person of the opposite sex in a covenant relationship. And that if you don't, if you're not committed to that, then it's going to be a hard go for you in that marriage, let alone outside of that in the workplace or in other contexts of relating to the opposite sex.
Yeah. So when I was a resident director, I would have these teams of students that would work for me, and there were years where I just had teams of guys, and they were cracking jokes, they were being ridiculous, they were loud, they would either oscillate between that and just being like super unengaged and passive and all these things, and I would talk to my female coworker who had teams of nothing but women, and these women were all the stereotypes you can imagine, right? Overly emotional, dramatic, all these things, and it was just ridiculous. My favorite teams is when we had some men and some women on the team, and at that time I would say the men anchor the women emotionally and keep us on task, and the women mature the men. And there's not as many jokes flying. You know, they're engaged, they're present, and you had a much more enjoyable time when you had a team of men and women working together.
Yeah.
And I think that illustrates this point nicely. Now that on a microcosm, marriage is much more intense and serious, right? Right. That it does help us build in empathy for the opposite sex. Although I think he does a good job of being like, not all women feel one way about things.
Sure.
And so when you're marrying, you are going to understand a woman, not all women.
Yeah. Yeah.
And reverse is true for men as well.
For sure. What did you make about he transitions from that to a point about singleness and how the church deals with singleness. He writes, 6 years ago, I didn't see any problem with the way that many evangelical books and pastors talked about singleness and single Christians. I agreed with these resources that the number one issue for the church and singles should be to normalize being unmarried, to work to remove any pressure or expectation that people should try to wed, and to hold up single people in the church as exemplars of faithful Christian ministry. I don't think this anymore. I'm not saying I've decided that single people cannot be faithful Christians or even elders in the church. I'm not saying that we should ridicule singles or instinctively distrust them. What I am saying is that I now believe most evangelical churches should look at their single members with both eyes open, an appreciation for the wonderful potential of their season of life, but also a desire and strategy, as the Lord permits, to find ways to get these people Christian spouses. In other words, I don't think we should fear admitting that marriage is, in the majority of situations we will come across, preferable to singleness.
I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there is a and I speak of this having been a single person in my 30s in a evangelical church. Mm-hmm. I think there are some sensitivities that need to come with that, right?
Yes.
I can remember, boy, that sermon only had illustrations for people who were of a certain age or at a certain life season. Like
Yep.
I think some.
Yep. I think we've talked about that in the pod.
Yeah. There needs to be some intentional reflection on those things.
That not every illustration or application should be from the realm of marriage.
Yeah.
Or parenting.
Right. And I think with thinking of an eye toward, hey, this is good for marriage. Like marriage is a good thing, and you should aspire to this. Like I think you can do both.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I'm on board with what he says here.
I agree. I think that's a really fine line
Absolutely.
to walk.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's going to require pastors engaging with single people in their church talking about like, hey, I'm preaching this passage. Mm-hmm. Here's a bit of my application. What are ways we can apply this to a single life?
Yeah.
Hey, you want to know what? How are you doing in your desire for marriage? Is that something that the Lord has laid on your heart? 90% of people do get married, or historically 90% of people get married. Mm-hmm. You're probably getting married at some point.
Yeah.
Have you thought through that? What is that going to be like? And those conversations are less heard.
Sure.
Rare is the person that wanted to talk about my singleness and desire to get married.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I agree. I think part of the challenge is there's multiple challenges. One part of the challenge is the fact that it can feel like a very personal area to talk about with a single person.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it can feel a little bit, even as your friend. I remember during your single years during that window that I would feel a bit of hesitation, not because I felt like you would be offended if I talked with you about those things, but also not wanting to be the one who stirs up, yes, I really want to be married and I'm working on contentment, and now you ask me about it and it stirs all the junk up again.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like,
oh, absolutely.
There can be that kind of hesitation on the part of others, I think.
Oh, yeah.
To not want to potentially hit a nerve and be like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to touch on something that's a sensitive area for you.
Yeah, yeah. And my response to that is people are going to step in it. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
You say, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you in that way. I didn't mean to offend you. I just care about you.
Yeah.
Take that attitude, be willing to apologize, come at it with a humble attitude. I think 9 times out of 10, it's going to be fine.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there's also the concern about you don't want to push so hard that you end up encouraging bad relationships end up into bad marriages. Mm-hmm. All for the goal of, well, marriage is a good thing, so we should be pushing singles to date, be in relationships, and then –
well, the other thing I'll mention, I know I've mentioned this to you before. When I was thinking of marrying, asking Andrea to marry me, I remember talking to people I will not name names. You are not one of them.
Okay.
I will say.
That's a relief.
Where people go, man, marriage is hard. You sure you want to do this? Marriage is this is really hard. Mm-hmm. Really hard. Like trying to I'm like, are you trying to talk me out of this?
Yeah.
I think publicly talking about the joy of marriage and how enjoyable their marriages are, and that they want people to experience those marriages, and not only talk about that and not talking about the hard stuff. It probably isn't the way forward. But I think another way to help us through this is to talk about the joys of marriage.
Yeah, I agree. I want to hit on one other issue in this article quickly before we wrap up.
Sure.
At the end, he talks about kind of the two contrasting. That's not the end here. The article talks about that there's this kind of very dualistic situation, meaning some will look at their church and go, the biggest problem is that men are passive and they need to be, get off their butts and lead and do those sorts of things. And then on the other side, you've got people who are saying, no, the biggest problem in this church is that men are dominant, arrogant jerks who dominate everything and don't give space for women. And his point is that creates a dynamic that only intensifies the gender war. Mm-hmm. That those are really the extremes, obviously. What did you make of that point?
I love how this is like an interview of me about about the article. On these sort of polarizing gender war or culture war things that are out there, it feels like there's a million of them.
Yeah,
I often go, yeah, that's probably right. And I also think that's probably right. Mm-hmm. And they're both issues that need to be dealt with. And I don't –
Yeah, there's a both and here.
Yeah, not neither or. And so –
But I did think he makes an interesting point in here. It's kind of incidental, but he makes the point in here that there seems to be a preponderance in the church, in the evangelical church. Pastors and church leaders are way more consistent and eager to deal with and address sins that are specific to men than they are to deal with sins that are more specific is the wrong word, more common among women. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's the case?
Probably, yeah. I mean, he names he goes to one Twitter fella, and this guy's talking about women having one-night stands and having affairs on their husbands. Mm-hmm. I don't think many pastors in the United States are unwilling to call that out.
Okay.
Would you disagree?
Well, but I think the point is the person who tweeted that is saying it seems like this is a trend among women and that pastors are hesitant to call out specifically women for that trend.
Women as a whole. So
that they would make it a generalized, hey, cheating on a spouse is a bad thing. Don't do it. As opposed to there seems to be this rise in the number of women who do this.
Yeah.
So women knock it off kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas when it comes to men's issues, and one of the more obvious one is pornography. When that's talked about, it's about 95.5 directed towards men. Mm-hmm. Even though if you look statistically, there's anywhere between 30 to 40% of women who view pornography. And so I use those as examples to say that's what he's kind of getting at, is that as he sees it, there's at least chunks of the church that are way more willing to focus on men's sins, sins that seem to be particularly more common among men versus sins that are particularly more common among women.
Do I think that's fair?
Do you think that's an accurate assessment?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I would not say that this guy's Twitter thing of women, this rise of women.
It may not be the best example.
Just because I went, well, that's news to me. Like I was unaware of this
right.
of this wave of adultery that's happening throughout.
Right. But I mean, think more traditionally, so to speak, gossip.
Mm-hmm.
As a general rule, you probably think because women tend to be more communicative with each other than men, perhaps gossip is a little bit more prevalent among women as a general rule than it is among men.
Mm-hmm.
And is that called out as such? I don't know. It was just an interesting point. I will say –
do you not buy it?
I think there's something going on here. And the main – one of the main examples I would give is the difference between Mother's Day sermons and Father's Day sermons.
Yes, I saw a tweet about this a while ago.
Right?
Trogs?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mother's Day sermons are, mothers are amazing. It's such a gift from God. They do all these amazing things. They have such an impact. They're awesome. We celebrate you.
Yeah.
Father's Day sermons are, get off your butt, play catch with your kid, pay attention.
Here's an RC Cola.
Yeah. Lead your house.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So, again, that's a stereotype. But I think there's some truth to that in terms of how those two seemingly very similar holidays are approached in the church even. So, well, there's more we could talk about, but we're past time. This is the first time we've been in the studio for like a week and a half, so we're a little undisciplined.
This episode has been very undisciplined.
Yeah.
We've sort of been all over the place.
Yeah,
and that's not a jab at you or at me or us in general. We just a little off our game.
It's our show.
It is.
I mean, we can do what we want.
Yeah.
I mean, remember the prime directive.
Don't get
fired.
Yeah.
As long as we accomplish that, then we're okay. So, all right, ready to move on?
Yes.
Time now for This Day in Sports History.
All right, This Day in Sports History, July 25th.
Crazy.
July 25th, 2023. School starts in what, 2.5 weeks? Something like that?
3
weeks?
Well, the first day of classes is the 23rd of August, so still a ways. But like
3 or 4 weeks, yeah.
But like the 16th is kind of when in-service and all that sort of stuff, and stuff creeps into the days before that. So really the week
coming.
starting August 14th is when things start to get ramping back up for us.
It's coming.
Yeah.
All right, 1956 on July 25th, Pittsburgh Pirates Roberto Clemente hits his MLB's first and only walk-off inside the park grand slam 9-8, winning over the visiting Chicago Cubs at Forbes Field. Roberto Clemente.
Yeah. A inside the park home run, walk-off, grand slam.
Which might be the most Roberto Clemente thing ever.
Oh, 100%.
I recently heard a story of Roberto Clemente in San Diego leaving the game, and his teammate walks by and goes, I got some fried chicken. And he goes, where did you get it? I want some fried chicken. Points him down the street. So he goes down to get some fried chicken, gets a bag of fried chicken, is walking back to his hotel, up rolls a car with guys sticking guns at him, force him to get in the car, drive him around, strip him naked, take his bag of chicken, and they asked him, wait, what do you do? And he goes, and thinking, I'll say I'm from San Diego, they'll be more favorable to a San Diego player.
Yeah.
I play professional baseball for the San Diego Padres. They immediately give him his clothes back. He gets dressed. They set him outside his hotel. They drive away, slam on the brakes, turn around, come back, hand him his bag of chicken, and then drive away.
Okay.
No one believed him. Anyway, okay, that's my Roberto Clemente story.
There you go. Okay.
1999, 86th Tour de France. Lance Armstrong wins first of 7 consecutive Tour de France's, but later has a kerfluffle with doping.
Yes. Yeah. Did you see the 30 for 30 with Lance Armstrong?
I believe I did.
Yeah.
I believe I did.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a real problem. He was doing some illegal stuff.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But the issue is he was just better at it than everybody else, right?
Oh, 100%.
That's the rationalization I tell myself as an American that, like, well, actually the French, the Germans, all these people were doing it.
All of them were doing it.
We just did it best. 2016, England fast bowler Jimmy Anderson becomes the first to take 50 wickets against all 7 major Test cricket playing nations during the second Test against Pakistan in Manchester. I understood about 40% of that.
Yeah, so bowler is like our equivalent to pitcher.
Right, they bounce it in though,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So would that be like the equivalent of like strikeouts?
I think so, yeah. And I understood the term Pakistan as well.
That's a relief.
2021, Japanese judokas Uta Abe, there we go, and his brother, that's a dude.
Her brother.
Her brother.
So the first one was a woman.
Oh, the first one's a woman.
Yudokas Uta Abe. And brother
Hifumi?
Sure.
Make history as the first siblings to win Olympic golds in different events on the same day at the Tokyo Games.
Yeah.
That's
pretty
wonderful.
cool.
Yeah. What a heartwarming tale.
Despite the unfamiliar names.
Uta Abe.
Yeah. So who do you like out of that list? I mean, we can't go Lance Armstrong.
No, that's a very negative story about American greatness. I kind of like Roberto Clemente.
Okay. I mean, you told a story about him. So.
I did.
I can go with that.
That'll be clear in just a moment.
Okay.
About why I told a story about Roberto Clemente.
I see. Okay. All right. One thing you liked.
The one thing I liked, I started a new audiobook called The Baseball 100, the top 100 baseball players in MLB history. Fascinating read. Covering, I think the 100th best player is Ichiro, and I'm down in the 40s somewhere right now.
Ichiro's that high?
Ichiro was the 100th best player.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, I guess if you include his Japanese,
and they do. So one of the struggles he has is like, he basically goes, legend has to be a part of our rating system and storytelling.
Okay.
Because what do you do with some of these Negro League players?
Oh yeah.
So like, what do you do with the Negro League player that they said was so fast that he hit a ball at second base and it hit him in the butt when he slid into second base?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that obviously didn't happen, but he was no doubt very, very fast. Sure. You know, and so they do this, and so you'll hear a guy and you're like, I have no idea who that is. Turns out he's some Negro League player from back in the day, and it's a great story. Some odd ones that I've run into. Where would you put Derek Jeter on this list? See, that's so hard, isn't it?
I mean, I always felt like he was a very overrated player.
Okay.
And that if you put him on the Kansas City Royals and gave him the exact same stats and even the same number of world championships,
he's not as big
of a deal.
They gave him upper 70s.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I'd put him in the 100.
Really? 3,000 hits, though. That's a big deal.
Yeah. I don't know.
Where would you put Jackie Robinson?
Well, I mean, can we put him at 42?
That's where he is. He's at 42. Where would you put Joe DiMaggio? Which I've already come across, by the way, and I'm in the low 40s.
I'm guessing he's in the upper 50s, low 60s?
56.
Okay.
Which was his hitting streak.
Right. Yeah, his hitting streak.
And that annoys me a little bit when he does that, when there's like an iconic number with them and he gives them that spot. Yeah. That's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Because that feels like a gimmick and not a rating. But fascinating book. Great baseball story. They just did Yogi Berra.
Okay.
Oh, Yogi Berra. They basically like, here are the best Yogi Berra one-liners.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he interspersed them with 12 strikeouts that he had in a single season. And he goes, why did I tell you about these 12 strikeouts? They were the only strikeouts he had for the entire season.
That's like a week for power hitters these days.
Yes. And they said, sure, some other guys had some seasons where they struck out less. None of them were power hitters. They were slappers, slashers. Yeah. They were not Yogi Berra.
Yeah.
Anyway, very cool. Very cool. Sorry, I've talked too much about the Baseball 100.
No, you're
awesome,
good.
Awesome book.
Yeah. See, I was torn for my one thing I liked, and I really want to do two. And so
it's our show.
It is our show, and I'm actually going to bring the worlds together.
Oh, boy.
We're going to bring them together. So last week, our friends, the Cornells, visited, Rich and Lori.
Oh, fun.
And so Rich was my college roommate for several years, best man at my wedding.
We need to get Rich on the pod here soon.
Well, if you'd have been in town.
I know. I was out of town.
We'd have done it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just had a great time hanging out with them for a few days. Even though we don't see eye to eye on a lot of the sort of secondary issues in terms of Christianity. Such a great friend, and so just a lot of laughter and played a lot of games. Introduced him to disc golf as well.
Oh, really? They don't have disc golf in Arminianism?
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to line it up theologically. They had just never played.
Okay.
So, but at the end of their visit, so we found out that our son Jake got a full-time job at the Y here in town.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
He had applied. He'd been working there part-time for the last 6.5 months-ish.
Okay.
And now he is officially the full-time director of sports and recreation.
Nice.
At the YMCA here in town.
Nice. So, that's great.
Yeah, very exciting. He's looking forward to it. And fun to talk him through all of the adulting things. Like we'll have to talk him through like which healthcare plan are you going to take.
Charitable giving to his alma mater. Yeah, all those things. Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. But of course the guy in advancement thinks of that.
Hey,
so.
I'm here to help.
Well, you know how to contact him.
Yeah, I have his cell number, yes.
All right. We have really rambled throughout this episode, covering a remarkably wide range of topics, including our latest publication together, John. We talked about a relative of mine winning the Open Championship.
That's right.
We talked about the gender war in the church. We talked about Roberto Clemente. We talked about the Baseball 100 and a visit with friends that we had and my son Jake's new job. And so I think by definition, we have covered our various and sundry topics. And all that's left to say is, until next time, the Lord bless y'all real good.
Later.